Welcome to the Infinity Bros podcast, the only podcast that's perfectly balanced, as all things should be. My name is Isaac Edlin. I am your host tonight, and I have two very special Infinity Bros with me to chat. The first is Jarret Curtis, our resident AI of the Infinity Bros universe.
Hi, kids. We actually like to be referred to as artificial language models, but you do you. I miss you guys. I don't know that I've been on an episode since we had our baby and I got my new job and stuff, so I apologize. You guys haven't heard my amazing sultry tones on the podcast in a hot minute, but I'm here.
Mute him.
I'm back,
Mute him.
baby!
He's getting too big of a head. Mute him.
Yes, it has been a while, Jarret, and we are excited to have you back. And we're going to be discussing something that our other Infinity Bro is very excited about, Deadpool and Wolverine. The other Infinity Bro appearing on this podcast tonight is the enigma of the Infinity Bros universe. It is Zayne Ellis, a big Deadpool fan. How you doing, Zayne?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm ready to talk some Deadpool Wolverine and hang out with the boys, get a little some shenanigans. It's not just a Zayne and Isaac mess around. It's a Zayne, Isaac, Jarret mess around. So.
I'd say this is the good half of the Infinity Bros.
Right.
For sure.
I mean, yeah, definitely.
It's the chaotic good half.
It's the chaotic good and the intelligent half.
And the best looking half.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely the best looking. Absolutely. Yeah. I totally in a full agreement with you boys. Very excited to talk some Deadpool and Wolverine. For you listeners, you may have not heard the Infinity Bros before. We're a group of 6 guys, have a rotating cast to talk pop culture, mostly Marvel and superhero stuff, but we also dabble in Star Wars, Magic the Gathering, some board games, film, TV, video games, just whatever our hearts are kind of drawn to in the nerdy.
We follow the money, so if you are interested in like a pasta-based podcast, I will spend an hour and a half with Robbie talking about pasta. Me and Zayne can do a mess around with like some sourdough recipes if you guys are into that. So as long as you're flashing the cash around,
watching Zayne need some sourdough might be a great YouTube video.
That's how we kick off the OnlyFans.
That's our OnlyFans content. Zayne needing sourdough. Robbie's just working out.
Yeah.
Like with clothes on, like just working out. Like that's all he's doing. Soon to be Infinity Bros OnlyFans, so stay tuned.
I can't wait for Isaac's ASMR like reviews of his Cage films.
Oh boy. I don't know. It's gonna be a wild time. But yeah, you can check out theinfinitybros.com for all of our cool links. You can listen to our previous episodes on our backlog. Just reviewed the Hall H presentation that Marvel Studios put out at San Diego Comic-Con. Tons of Marvel news coming out of that. Biggest being RDJ coming back as Victor Von Doom to the MCU for Avengers Doomsday, which is the new title for Avengers 5. Just real quick, guys, what are your guys' thoughts of Robert Downey Jr. coming back to the MCU? Like, what was your initial reaction?
It's a great actor to have, and it fits in with the multiverse stuff. So story-wise, I think it's going to be great. There was a part of me that wishes like we could have gotten a fresh face, a new because the MCU is so big. Like, you don't have to recycle stuff. Like, you can keep bringing in new people, but at the same time, with a character like this big, and especially with the whole multiverse route, like, it still fits story-wise. So that's why I'm like, all right, this makes sense. And if arguably there's going to be a character that you want back in playing someone else who can provide that depth and is going to crush that role, it is RDJ. So it's just like, all right, I get it. I would have liked to see a fresh face, but I'm not overly upset about it either.
I'm sort of the same mind where like I am getting a little sick of the cameo bait, where it's like, haha, guess what? This person's also going to be in these 5 films. But at the same time, and we talked about this with Max off the podcast, there's room here for a sort of like Dark Avengers style story where Tony Stark comes back as what would essentially be like Green Goblin, running the Avengers, and like, what does this look like with him as a villain? And I think a lot of people had said like this cheapens his sacrifice at the end of Endgame, and I'm I'm sort of 50-50 on that. I would have loved to see that be his like send off and really like have the weight of that sit for a while. But at the same time, I'm interested to see where they go with it. If they flop this, I'm going to be so angry. And like already, Marvel's been pretty hit or miss ever since Endgame. And so if they don't do this justice, I feel like that's the nail in the coffin. But at the same time, I think they have a real opportunity here. And we'll talk about Deadpool in a minute. But like, if they make this a little darker than they have been, and really give up on trying to make these like really kid focused movies and just really lean into like, hey, he's the bad guy, he's the villain, we're gonna do some really horrible things with
This
him.
is
I'm down for that.
Prepare yourself.
Yeah, my initial
Infinity
reaction
Bros.
was
Prepare yourself.
Spoiler.
I don't think it's a bad idea as far as like getting
Warning.
people's attention and coming back to the MCU, which I mean we've talked about on our podcast ad nauseum of people just generally losing interest in the MCU. It's still making enough money that it's, you know, successful, but this is a move that is going to bring people back in droves. Yeah. Like these Avengers films are going to make $1 billion.
Dude, Disney's
no
gonna
problem.
bleed that dead horse till it's dust. Like there's no way to let the cash cow go.
We talk about this on a semi-regular basis too. The Sony universe,
yeah,
man, we talk about it like it should just die. Like they just need to give up these Spider-Man parallel characters to Marvel Studios and let them take control. But then you get a hit like Venom, which makes almost $1 billion somehow. Domestically, I think it only made like 200, but they loved it in China. It makes like 600 million in China. And then all of a sudden, Sony's like, oh yeah, we're going to make a whole new slate of
Morbius
movies,
2, here we come.
Yeah, exactly. Like this is breathing new life into the MCU. And it's gonna extend the life of the MCU, whether that's a good thing or not, I don't know. But either way, the Russos are back as well, which is big news. So they're gonna put something together that's gonna be pretty epic.
It's hard to say no to that team for sure.
Exactly. Like Russo's back, RDJ's back. It's gonna get people's butts in seats in theaters. So that's what the goal is. But here's my pitch, though, for Kevin Feige, who I know listens to every single episode of our podcast. Recast Kang. Obviously, we got the whole Jonathan Majors mess, but we got so many open threads with Kang. If they just leave it, it's going to be messy, I feel like. Recast Kang. Have RDJ Doom defeat Kang in the first Avengers movie. And then at the end of that Avengers movie, have the real Doom come in, which would be, you know, somebody else casted as Doom. And then Avengers Secret Wars would be like Battle World, like full on Battle World.
Yeah. I'm going to take it a step farther. You've passed me the gauntlet. Now I'm taking it to the end zone.
The gauntlet.
We have the entire like setup for a Young Avengers type movie or series or whatever they want to do with it. Now, granted, like some of those properties are not great, but some of them are really good. And so I think if they could add in a young actor as Iron Lad, spoilers, he is Kang, and really run with that ball and say like, look, you got to kill this older version of you, and Doom is there, and all this, and then like use that as the stepping off point for recasting him. I think that's more believable than just like pulling a War Machine and just like straight up flipping the character out of nowhere.
Yes,
Psych, you won't notice.
Hey, I mean, they're doing it with Thunderbolt Ross, which is
that's true.
They have to because
they've recast it like 3
really
times. So like, you know, who cares about Ross?
But like, hey, you know, it's happening. They did say specifically Victor Von Doom. I mean, there's been tons of speculation online that he's a variant of Tony Stark that is also Doctor Doom. A few different comic runs. Everybody's referencing Infamous Iron Man or Infamous.
Right.
It is Infamous Iron Man.
It is Infamous Iron Man.
Or it's actually Doom who takes over Tony Stark's brain, not the other way around. But there's a lot of theories floating around out there. But they specifically said Victor Von Doom.
Oh, I did not catch that. Okay.
I'm hoping that he's a variant of some kind and that we get a real casting of Doom at some point down the line. And definitely, listeners, go back and listen to episode 204 of the Infinity Bros podcast because Mark and Max talk about this at length. if they have to lengthen Avengers Secret Wars into 2 movies, I'm fine with that. If we can get a big, bad, powerful Doom, let him play as long as possible before they kill
Let
him
him
off,
cook.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they're gonna kill him off. That's just like what Marvel does. And like,
Yeah.
with Thanos, it's like, how do you have a guy who's so powerful that he snaps away half the universe? Like, you have to kill him, right? Like, you can't just like let him go frolic on another planet. Like,
The stakes are too high for
right.
sure.
So it's gonna end up being the same with Doom. But if we get a little bit more of whoever the real Doom is, that would be my ideal scenario.
Can I tell you one of my favorite things about Doom that I feel like everybody overlooks this, right? And it's been done in all the movies. One of the things about Doom is like you never see his face, or the few times that you do, you either see it one from his perspective, which is like horrifically scarred, or there's been a couple times where we see his face from somebody else's perspective and it looks fine and there's just like maybe a scar or something. And I love the idea of Doom being like this guy who never takes off his mask, is insanely powerful, but he's so obsessed with perfection and being the perfect ruler that even like a minor flaw to him is as if his face was scarred, beyond. Like, that is such a cool aspect of Doctor Doom in the comics
Well,
that they
and Doom
never
is
touch
a
in the movies. So like,
very complex character in the comics, and
oh my gosh,
that's
yes.
another one of my worries is that like Avengers Doomsday is coming out in 2026.
Yeah.
They're gonna have to force Doom into like 1 or 2 projects before then, and I really hope that they can build him up enough to be a a major like universal threat
Right.
by Avengers Doomsday.
And make him interesting. Don't go like the Taskmaster route where it's just like, here's a character we had lying around. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Do it
right.
justice. Jeez Louise. Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. So, anyways, if you want to hear more Marvel Studios Hall H news, go back, listen to episode 204, where Infinity Rose, Max, and Mark break all that news down. But today, we are going to be talking about Deadpool and Wolverine. Just moving forward here, we have a special rating system on the Infinity Bros podcast that we want you to know about.
Here on the Infinity Bros podcast, everything is ranked from a 0 to 6 point scale. 0 meaning horrible, and 6 meaning absolutely excellent. If all of the Infinity Bros rank something a 6, it gets an Infinity Step.
And we'll be giving a spoiler review or a spoiler warning in a bit, but I just want to talk a little bit about kind of the broad spectrum Deadpool and Wolverine, the box office hit that it is. 820 million worldwide as of August 3rd, which is bonkers. It's like it just came out a week and a half ago and it's already at 820 million for an R-rated movie. That is absolutely insane. I'll give you a spoiler warning in a bit, but Deadpool and Wolverine, like I said, 820 million for an R-rated movie. Second biggest film of 2024 already. Inside Out 2 is at 1.5 billion. So I would venture to say that Deadpool and Wolverine,
That still surprises me. Like, I haven't seen the film, but props to
it was
to
good.
Inside
And
Out for
Zane,
that.
you saw it as well, correct? Inside Out
Yeah.
2?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good. Like, it was good. I don't know if it really warrants the huge reaction that it has at the box office.
Sure.
Well, I think just so many people enjoyed the first one, and like
Yeah.
it was such a great premise. A lot of people enjoyed it, so like there's really no reason for the second one to not have that drop off. And then
I have another theory to this too.
and then seeing that it's just good enough too, like you've kind of established it that it's just like this is just a good series. Like this is what people want to watch, and it's like if you give people what they want to watch, they're going to show up to watch it.
I feel like with the exception of If, and that's probably about it. I feel like there hasn't been a lot of like really good kid-friendly movies that offer that theater experience in a while. And so I wonder if that plays into it a little bit too. Like if you wanted to go watch a nice summer movie with your kids, or spring, I guess it would have came out in spring at that point. But I wonder if it was also like, obviously I'm not trying to dog on Inside Out because I haven't seen it yet, but I wonder if that played a part in it too, where there wasn't just like over a minute, because I think there was like a Garfield movie that flopped and a bunch of other things around that same time. So
I mean, technically it was successful just based on its budget for the Garfield movie. The thing that shocks me about Inside Out 2 is not that it made it 1.5 billion, because that makes sense, but I didn't feel almost any hype about Inside
yeah,
Out 2 leading up to its release, and then all of a sudden it made like 500 million in the opening
right.
weekend. And I was just like, whoa,
Yeah, for
okay,
sure.
like I guess people were hyped about this. I just didn't hear anything about it. Just crazy. But yeah, anyways, it was worth it. Like it was a really good movie. And I think we've talked about this offline, but it's probably hits right around like 5 to 7 on my like Pixar
Sure.
films. So it's not, to me, it's still, it maybe a top 5 Pixar film. Whereas the first one is probably 4 or 5 on
Sure.
that like list to me. So I don't know, man. The hype is real and people are still going to see it. So, anyways, Deadpool and Wolverine probably won't make that much, but still, for an R-rated movie to make $1 billion, very
Real
impressive.
big deal.
It's definitely gonna. I would say it's only been 2 weekends and it's already there. So I'm assuming that this is probably going to climb up to 1.5 billion by the time its box office run is done. Inside Out 2's got a chance to make 2 billion, I feel
Right.
like, cuz that's at like 1.67 something billion right now. Just wild. These two have just blown everything else this year out of the water. Just
I love that
no
it's so
competition.
very opposite ends
Right.
of the spectrum.
Very
So
different.
different. So let's take a look at the differences. Deadpool and Wolverine. Deadpool is offered a place in the Marvel Cinematic Universe by the Time Variance Authority, but instead recruits a variant of Wolverine to save his universe from extinction. Directed by Sean Levy, written by Ryan Reynolds, Rhett Reese, and Paul Wernick. Top cast: Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool. Hugh Jackman comes back as Logan.
Whoa, spoilers.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
I'm not going deep into spoilers here because there are a lot of them. Yeah, Hugh Jackman's first time reprising his role as Wolverine for 7 years. Logan was 2017. Emma Corrin as Cassandra Nova. Matthew McFadden as Mr. Paradox. And I'm going to stop there because there's so many spoilers in this movie that I don't want to get too deep without giving somebody a spoiler warning. But you guys, I want to give you a chance to do like a 60-second spoiler-free review of Deadpool and Wolverine. So Jarret, why don't you go ahead and go first? What did you think of this film?
I feel like it's no surprise. I loved it. For how irreverent of a series Deadpool is, not just as like a movie, but as a comic book as well. It kind of hit me in the feels at a few points. I think there was a lot of respect paid to the fans of this genre and a lot of respect paid to the people who have invested like their whole lives into enjoying the superhero series of genres and all the films that came out prior to this. And so it's really like a love letter to the Foxverse, which we'll talk about a little bit going forward. But it's funny, it's witty, it doesn't leave like open pacing where kind of waiting for the next thing. It just kind of really like nicely rolls from one thing to another. And I'm not the kind of person that necessarily likes a lot of crude humor. A lot of the first series of Deadpool, the first movie in particular, like a lot of the jokes didn't land. But in this one, I felt like every single one of them was pretty good. And I loved it. I walked out of there saying like, man, this is worth every penny I spent.
Zane, what would you think about Deadpool and Wolverine? Spoiler-free review.
Yeah, I would have to agree with what Jarret said about it being a love letter of what we had from the Fox series. Like, to me, I feel like this movie did such a good job of being that bridge movie of what superhero movies used to be, and then
Yeah.
bridging also into what superhero movies are now. And it did such a good job of bridging between the two. I think we were texting about this, me, Max, and Robbie were after we, kind of the first night after we saw it, and we were just like, it's kind of a crazy thing that this movie pays respects to all that old, the old superhero movies, how what we had, what we grew up on, but also simultaneously completely and utterly mocks them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it is done so well that you're feeling like it was respected and honored, but absolutely mocked at the same time. And you're like, that is such a unique way that you captured both of those so well. When I left, I was like, this was a great movie. Like I said, I saw it Thursday night with Max and then saw it Friday morning again with Isaac. And I was just like, each time I left the theater, I'm just like, the second watch was still as enjoyable as the first. Like it was a fun movie. Again, it's, rated R, obviously. It's very adult, a lot of the crude humor, but like Jarret said too, like the jokes landed. It was paid the respects when it needed the respects. It had the comedy when it needed the comedy. All around, like that is a fun movie experience. And it was what it needed to be. It was made for the comic book fans that want that. Yeah. It was a love letter to all that. And I thought it was like so well done.
Fully agree on all of your guys' spoiler-free reviews here. I would go out and venture to say too that if you are a enjoyer of the Deadpool films or any of the films that Hugh Jackman as Wolverine has been in, you will love this movie. I don't know if you would really enjoy it if you didn't like either of those.
If you don't like superhero movies, don't go watch this.
It might just not be your thing. If that's the case, I saw a TikTok of a Christian couple that went to see this movie.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about this. Yeah.
And they said they walked out in the first 20 minutes, and I'm like, yeah, you went to a Deadpool and Wolverine movie. Like, what?
They were like, they took the Lord's name in vain. It's like, what? Yeah. I mean,
like, we've talked about it earlier, but there's a meme going around there's 119 uses of the F word in the MCU.
Yeah.
One is in Guardians of the Galaxy 3. The other 118 are in Deadpool and Wolverine.
Right.
Like, if crude humor and language is not your jam, this movie probably isn't for you. But if you like crude humor, you think crude, humorous action films are fun, you're going to love this one. It was a good time. It was just, I think it's the best Deadpool movie out of all of them, honestly. I think it was fantastic. Was really great to, like you guys said, played on the nostalgia just in the perfect way. It didn't do it, didn't desecrate the memories of, Logan or Wolverine, and it
kind of did specifically do that thing.
Yeah, we'll get into that here. We'll get into that. Just hold your horses here, man. But like you said, Zane, just like bridge that gap between like those old 2000s X-Men vibes and bringing them into the present with like the Deadpool franchise. It was a really cool way to do things. Really enjoyable movie. So that is our spoiler-free reviews. Here is your official spoiler warning for Deadpool and Wolverine. All right. Well, we already kind of mentioned it, but the first scene was literally Deadpool desecrating the grave of Logan. So that was kind of the perfect way to open the movie. That was everybody's concern about this, right? Like, how do you go from Logan, an uber serious and heartbreaking movie, to the complete opposite of that?
Surprise,
in Deadpool?
Yeah, Wolverine's back. How do you make that transition well?
Yeah. Right. And you get Deadpool just using Logan's adamantium skeleton to take out, looks like, I mean, he counts the bones. Yeah. So it's like, what is it? Like 200 some bones in the body. Uses every single
Isaac,
bone.
You're the only one here who's taking anatomy.
You're literally a nurse.
Hey, I don't count everybody's bones when I'm taking care of them in the hospital. But
you asked the computer teacher and the Amazon worker.
You're an AI. I just assumed that you knew.
And it's 206 bones in the human body. Okay,
thank you, Zane. I knew that one of you would know that.
207 if he's watching Gilmore Girls.
Oh my gosh. It was, and with the Instincts bye in the background.
That part was so good. That's one of
So
my
good.
favorite intro. Like I
Oh.
just rewatching for that. Like that was one of my most looked forward to things of watching it again on Friday with you, is getting to watch that again. I was just like, that's fun.
Just
It's so well done. So close. It's just
incredible.
like, that's top 5
And
favorite movie
in a
intros.
franchise with Deadpool and Deadpool 2 that had also fantastic intros to
Yes.
their movies as well. Like this was just, I don't know, it was perfect. I thought it was the best way to open it. And I don't know, like it was just funny that they went to the exact same shot of, Laura putting the X down in Logan's grave, and then they go to that shot and then Deadpool's like digging up his grave. It was just, oh my gosh, it was incredible. But yeah, so we get that incredible opening. Obviously, he rewinds, goes back to his story in the TVA and stuff like that. What do you guys think of the Mr. Paradox and the whole TVA component of this film? Like, we knew that the TVA was going to be a part of it from the trailers. What do you guys think about kind of the whole storyline they took, kind of recruiting Deadpool to be an agent, I guess, of the TVA? What did you guys think of that angle?
I thought it was an interesting way, at least from my perspective, of how it panned out with everything you got from Loki and how Loki kind of shifted everything with the TVA. It also kind of made sense to me that arguably there's going to be people in the TVA that probably didn't agree with everything that happened. That there's probably, yeah, it would make sense that there's some people in the TVA that think, no, they should be done like this, or, kind of have flying under the radar of what we're going to do our own thing. So I was like, it arguably makes sense because, yeah, you're not just doing everything you can to keep one main timeline, but some people wouldn't like that. And then it kind of gives rise that, yeah, you can probably have some of those splinter groups that show up. Then you get your Mr. Paradox, who's just like, no. I'm going to make the timeline back to what I want it to be. And so like it makes sense from the aspect of the TVA got completely, shooken up with everything that happened in Loki. And so it fits in. Like it's weird when you start getting into multiverse and timeline stuff, but also in that weirdness, it still fit. Like it still matched what we have in the MCU.
Yeah. So we have a little bit of a hiccup, I guess I'll call it, of people online being people online, and kind of dissecting the timeline a little bit. So Logan technically happens in a different timeline than all of the other X-Men movies. They say it's set in 2029. TVA refers to Logan as being the anchor being of Deadpool's universe. And Deadpool and Wolverine is set in 2024. So there's some people kind of like being a little hemming and hawing on the timeline of the MCU in that. What do you guys think this is a big deal, or
I
is this
love,
something?
guys, it's an organization that lives out of time and space, and you're worried that like it doesn't happen chronologically. Like we go back in Loki season 2 and pick up like a version of He Who Remains, and like we're all cool with that. And it's not like, well, they're in the future. How do they go in the past? It's the freaking TVA, right? Like none of this stuff is happening within a proper time sequence. So if an anchor being dies in like meta time or whatever, sure, that's going to affect people on the timeline all the way back to existence. That's not going to happen just forward from 2099 on. Like you're killing a whole timeline. Dude,
Yeah,
nerds are so dumb. Chill
yeah,
out.
and it's like it's a Deadpool movie, guys. Like I'm pretty sure they really didn't mean for us to dive this deep into the timeline and the lore of the MCU.
Well, right. Well, also too, like part of that is just if you didn't pick it up on it, but it's not just the fact that it's timeline. Like that was in just their way of saying, "Hey, it's this timeline's dying," but realistically, just swap out timeline with 20th Century Fox.
Right.
Because like that's when their movies died is with Logan, and the only thing that's kind of kept it around is Deadpool. But
Right.
as the timeline, because like I said, it's that bridge. That's old superhero movies, new superhero movies. When Logan died, that was in essence the end of old superhero movies.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And yeah,
sure.
it's like you said too, TVA that exists outside of time. Like, it's not that weird. Like, yeah, you're dealing with time travel. Stop being so picky about stuff. Like,
I don't
just
think the
watch the movie.
problem is necessarily the TVA, because, like you guys say, the TVA is set outside of time and space. But like in Deadpool's universe, which they're calling, by the way, in this movie, they actually said it is Earth 10005, which would be the Fox like 20th century, universe or whatever. It is 2024. Technically, Logan is still alive in 2024, according to that. I don't know. Again, this is all just like conjecture because they haven't obviously clarified what universes each X-Men movie is from. It's just like
Well,
it's a
Logan.
hubbub that's like
Well,
whatever.
Logan wouldn't even need to be alive in 2024 because the whole point is your anchor being can die. Mr. Paradox explains it. It takes can take 1,000 years for the timeline to
Right.
actually
No.
die after your anchor
Right.
point
What I'm
dies.
saying
Like,
is that Logan would still be alive in 2024, and then they bring the other Wolverine back to that timeline. So technically, there would be two Wolverines in that timeline, which
Well,
honestly doesn't.
we have like because of Days of Future Past, we have like two separate timelines there alone, and so I think
True.
right.
if you try to figure this out and say like which one is specifically the Foxverse,
Yeah,
they don't even follow their own
They don't
rules.
even
Like,
know,
Right.
right?
You're fine.
Yeah, and again, I don't think anybody was like, this really serious Deadpool movie needs to be perfectly aligned within the MCU timeline. Otherwise, the MCU nerds online are gonna figure it out. So, I don't think they were really focused on that. So,
No.
but anyways, along this TVA, while I mentioned he found another Wolverine to bring back to his Earth to help him fix it. We get into that sequence where he's searching for the right Wolverine, and we flash to a ton of different Wolverines that's a priceless sequence, man. We get Patches, we get Age of Apocalypse Logan, we get Ultimate Logan, we get
Tiny
uh,
Logan.
Tiny Logan, we get Henry Cavill Logan.
Yeah.
That one, I was like,
I love the line that he says where he's like, it's something to the effect of like, "We'll treat you much better than the guys
Yeah,
down the
right.
street."
yeah,
I'm like,
right.
please,
Yes,
get
and then
down.
he did the like
Yeah.
just like
The-
cocking as he was about to
Oh my
punch him back
gosh.
into his. Oh my gosh, that was incredible. Do you guys think this is just a fleeting cameo, or do you think we see Henry Cavill as a Wolverine again at some point?
I think because I think it's in the same vein as like, why am I blanking on the new dude's name? Jim Halpert. What's that actor's name? I can't think of his name right now.
John Krasinski?
John
John
Krasinski. Thank you. In the same way that like we got John Krasinski in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of
Right.
Madness, I do
True.
think this is like, hey, fans have been calling this out. Let's just give him just throw him a bone. I don't think we're
Yeah.
gonna get him, especially because like from the sounds of it, he's pretty locked in on whatever his long-term Warhammer project is. Now, granted, like that means nothing in the scope of Disney money, but we'll see.
Yeah. But yeah, Henry Cavill as Wolverine, that was just chef's kiss. Like first of many, many impressive cameos
Absolutely.
in this movie. But that one I was not expecting at all. Like a lot of these other ones, I was like, oh, that was amazing. That was so cool. Love that. But this one literally shocked me. I was like, whoa, okay. How did they keep that one under wraps? Because
Yeah,
I
for
feel
real.
like that would have been a big news leak if that were, obviously to get out. They kept a lot of things under wraps.
Yes,
Honestly.
they did. In light of like how many spoilers I caught, just like not even you guys know me, I'm not online as much anymore, and I caught a ton of spoilers. But even like, dude, there were so many that I did not see coming. Yeah, the Henry Cavill one really like took the cake though.
Yeah, that was wild. But then finds his Wolverine, the worst multiversal Wolverine, who apparently murdered. What was his deal again? He murdered, or no, he let his friends die while he was getting drunk. Basically,
Yeah, so he got smashed, his friends died, and then because of that, he went on a rampage and killed a bunch of people.
He killed a bunch of people, right? Yeah. So, but he is the one with the sick yellow and blue suit, which was incredible. Honestly, like watching this movie, I was like, this is like the peak of superhero movie suits.
Yeah.
Deadpool suit is fantastic. The Logan suit, especially later in the movie when he pulls on the cowl when they're all facing the Wolverines.
And when the sleeves are cut off and he gets the cowl
my
up. And,
gosh,
it's so
that was
cool.
amazing. How do we feel about the like white eyes cowl for Wolverine? Like it makes total sense for Deadpool.
Yeah.
It doesn't look weird at all. I don't know. I was like,
it looked really
kinda...
odd for Wolverine. I think
Yeah.
the brown suit actually looked a little bit better.
Ooh, brown suit. Yeah,
but-
that was a variant we got as well. That was and in that same sequence we got a little look at Hulk as well, like Hulk versus Wolverine. That was another cool nod. They did a ton of work and like cool comic book cameos in that. Oh, another one I don't even think I mentioned was him. I don't know what comic book it's from, but him on the like X cross.
Oh yes, yeah.
And all the skulls, like mountain that he was on, I was like, oh.
I love that he was just like, "Nah, I'm leaving that dude up there."
yeah.
Not messing with this one. Yeah.
Oh, so good.
Oh, such a great sequence of cameos.
Can I jump in just real quick with
Go for
the
it.
quote unquote worst Wolverine?
Mm-hmm.
I kind of understand. Like, I get why he would feel such remorse and like why it's way so heavy on him that it makes him feel like the worst Wolverine, that he wasn't there for his friends. But I am so disappointed that they didn't go the old man Logan route, because I feel like, I don't know, I feel like that would have been so much heavier. Like the difference between I let my friends die and I killed every single one of my friends.
Oh, that would have been
heartbreaking. Yeah. So that would have been cool to see that. I don't know how you guys felt about that, but I was a little disappointed they didn't go that route.
I think that would have been cool for sure. It didn't cross my mind. Like I wasn't disappointed, I would say. But yeah, I mean, now that you're saying that, I was like, holy crap, that would have been really cool. And it would have made a lot of sense as to why, like, everybody, like, in the bar that they're in, everybody's like, oh, I don't like this guy.
Screw this guy. And it's like, what? Wolverine killed people. That's kind of what he does. Like,
yeah, right. Oh, man. That was
I love that.
another...
He's like, I killed people. It's like, well, you're Wolverine, so yeah, you're the best at what you do.
Yeah. So we get Deadpool trying to recruit him. He just chugs a whole bottle of whiskey, passes out. Yeah. That was funny. He like got up, and I was like expecting this big fight.
It just drops.
Drops. That was great. But okay, got sidetracked a little bit, but back to the Wolverine suit. So we got the cowl, which, I mean, comic book fans have been waiting for just the comic book accurate suit in general. The fact that we got the cowl on top of that was just
phenomenal.
Chef's kiss. Incredible. Yeah. Hilarious moment in the very last, not the very last scene, I should say, but like in the saving the world scene when he like, stabs the one side of the like energy thing and he's holding on to Deadpool with his other hand. His suit bursts into flames. He's still got the cowl. Yeah. I thought that was...
He's got the cowl and then he's cutting the waist down, but they're like, we gotta show the money maker.
Gotta show the whole like package, just the pecs and the abs. Gotta get that in there. And Heath, or I always want to say Heath Ledger.
Yeah.
Hugh Jackman's like massive veins in his arms, like, dude just looks massive, and it was just so funny. Yeah, I just loved how they kept the cowl on him during that scene, but the rest of his suit's just gone. It's just gone. But yeah, lots of great stuff with Hugh Jackman coming back as Wolverine. Moving on a little bit, I mean, obviously they play this like, almost buddy cop thing with Logan being the straight guy, Deadpool being the, funny comedic relief type guy. There's one scene that it stuck out to me in the whole scope of the movie as well was the Honda Odyssey fight
Oh, yeah.
scene.
Oh,
We get this monologue of Logan basically like giving it to Deadpool, being like, dude, you're not it. Like you are not the guy. And it actually gets Deadpool. Deadpool doesn't get got.
Yeah.
You know, like he uses that humor to shield himself.
right.
But in that moment, he's speechless. And that was a really powerful moment. And then he just punches him right in the face. And Hugh Jackman's like shock at that first
Yeah.
punch was just like, all right, I guess we're doing this. Oh, but just that's just like a mark of a Deadpool film with the added bonus of Hugh Jackman Wolverine being on top of it. Just a brutal, epic fight scene. Just oh my gosh, that was one of my favorite parts of the movie. Just going nuts, and then in the end of that scene, showing them sleeping because they're so exhausted
Yeah.
from fighting in the van, and Deadpool's like
Wrapped
wrapped up
in
in all the
seatbelts.
seatbelts.
The line that he drops, and it bothered me so much because I've read it in a comic, but I can't think of what comic it's in, where he says like, of all the people that they could make immortal, like the funniest joke is that they made you. And, like,
Yeah.
the joke is on us.
Yep.
And I want to say it's like Messiah Complex or something, where they're at the end of the world, end of all time, and like who do they find? It's Deadpool, still alive. And
Yeah.
so like, dude, that was really like well delivered, and the fact that like, oh my gosh, it was the one time you stopped getting jokes from Deadpool was like, whoo, it was so good.
Yeah, it was heavy. It was heavy. I think I probably skipped ahead because I wanted to talk about that scene.
How could
But
you not?
prior to that, we do get the first meeting of Cassandra Nova, who, for comic book fans, we know that she is the twin sister of Charles Xavier, who did he choke her out with the umbilical cord in the womb? Is that how the story goes? Or was it like his like telekinetic
His
powers that he
telekinetic,
killed her?
like, yeah. It's one of those that like, depending on which era of the X-Men you read, it's very different. It's like how Juggernaut constantly changes from being a mutant to like now he's possessed by a demon and all this other stuff. So her origin story is a little weird. Main TLDR is like she's the twin, and she's significantly weaker than Xavier.
Yeah, but she is thriving in the void where they, banished her to as a fetus, basically, is what
Yeah.
she kind of like says. She loves it there. She's like the
Home sweet
basically
home.
the
Yeah.
queen of the void, and Eliath doesn't bother her. I'm assuming because of her like telekinetic powers, she probably like can ward off.
Well, they kind of
Eliath.
imply that like the TVA has stopped Eliath from. So my guess is like He Who Remains made some deal with her prior in the past and was like, hey, you just clean up my dirty work and Eliath won't touch you.
Right.
You skipped the best part of this though, which is like the lead up going up to it and the cameos that
I'm going
we got.
backwards.
Okay.
I'm going backwards.
Yeah. Okay.
So we meet her, but not before, because you mentioned that. Oh my gosh, Zayne! This is one of the moments that I literally like looked over at you in the theater, and I was like, "Oh my
So cool.
gosh!"
So
We get
cool.
Chris Evans' voice from the top of the tower.
Right.
He does the superhero line. Okay, so even backtrack further than that. We get. I'm sorry. I'm like disjointed because
We'll
like
get
there's
there.
so many
Yeah.
crazy stuff that happens in this movie. But like, okay, so we get they like the Mad Mask crew. They come and they're circling Deadpool and Wolverine after they fought, which was another great fight scene, by the
Yes.
way. We get them fighting. Wolverine just decapitates Sabretooth in like 5 seconds. That was hilarious because we had that like build up from the trailer and we're like, oh, we're going to get a Wolverine and Sabretooth showdown. Boom, dead. That was hilarious. And then we hear Chris Evans does the superhero landing. thought for sure. I was like, it's Captain America. Oh my, I was eating it all up. Played right into their hands.
Yeah.
And Zayne, actually, I talked to Max. He told me this story. He said that you literally said "flame on" like seconds before Chris Evans said "flame on" in the theaters. So you obviously knew that was coming. Oh my
Well,
gosh!
it's like it's gonna be the biggest twist because it was too on the nose because like even like the clothes he's wearing was red, white, and blue, and you're just like, no, he's got to go Human Torch here. So it was like flame on. Because even Deadpool sitting there is just like, oh, Avengers is so, and then he hits him with the flame on, and you're just like, oh my god, and just takes off. You're like, oh my god.
So I gotta tell you guys,
so
the theater that I saw this in was really small, and it's all cement. It's the worst acoustics. So from the back of the room, I just hear heavy breathing, and then when he drops the line, I hear some dude shout from the back like, "Oh shit!" I was like, yeah. So it was like the perfect reaction.
Just perfect. Oh my gosh! And then, then he gets captured. Like no problem. I love how they let Chris Evans go back
just
and
look
play.
like an idiot. Yeah, it was
It's just
so
being
good.
complete idiot. And honestly, like I was thinking about it, I haven't watched those old Fantastic Four movies in a long time. But I remember Chris Evans being a really good douche. Like, and in other things too. Like, Scott Pilgrim. I know there's another project that he just plays like a real douche, and he's really good at it. Like he's really good at it. And Knives Out too. Oh man, I forgot about that.
Gosh, yes.
But like he plays a great douche, and I feel like he wasn't really playing that just epic douche. Like he still was hilarious as Human Torch, but like I don't know. I feel like he could have upped that ante a little bit more especially for Deadpool and Wolverine. Like go all out, man. Be a douche.
Dude,
did you not watch the end credit scene?
I was gonna say, did you see the end of the film?
Oh yeah, you're right. You're right. He really was a douche. Oh my gosh. Okay, so this is me just like reveling in the fact that Max gets mad at something, but like and I don't even know how he feels about that post-credit scene, because the one that got me was the Multiverse of Madness post-credit scene where it's just Bruce Campbell like doing a weird face, like something stupid. Max hated that.
Yeah.
Absolutely hated it. And I watched this post-credit scene and I was like, oh, Max is gonna this is a useless, absolutely. And that's what all of Deadpool's post-credit scenes are, really. Like they're just useless, like hilarious, fun post-credit scenes. But I was just like, oh, Max is gonna hate this. I absolutely love that he's gonna hate this. But that was funny. Oh, that was great. Did he say anything about that? Did he say if he liked that post-credit scene or not?
Not that I've seen. Yeah.
He just chuckled at me. I didn't really say anything about it.
All right, fine. I hope he hated it, because that would bring me great pleasure. So, but anyways, then they get captured. We go see Cassandra Nova.
Well, I suppose I'll just cut in before the Cassandra.
Yeah, go for it.
Seeing Pyro back was cool, and then that was cool. He never gets the lines, but I'm just, even from Star Wars, big Ray Park fan. Seeing Ray Park back as Toad.
Yep.
It's just fun. Like you said, too, it's just, when you grew up in riding those shades of that first X-Men movie, and like you go back and watch it, you're like, it's not a good movie. But as a kid, X-Men, they're just so cool. Yeah. And just seeing that again, you're like, all right, this is cool.
And they had, Lady Deathstrike, like Azazel. I feel like they had like two or three other like X-Men. Yeah, Juggernaut. Yeah, just a ton of great cameos that I feel like those ones were underrated. And like, because we get the spotlight to the crew that we'll introduce later, but man, it was so cool to see some of those characters back playing those roles. And man, it must have been so cool, like when we get the behind the scenes like documentary about this movie, like I hope we get a specific one for this movie, because of all the stuff that they must have done to pull these strings to pull this together. It would be so cool to see just like a blurb of how each actor or actress felt coming back to play these characters.
Right.
Just something that, they probably loved back in the day, that they get a chance to come back and do it again. Just so cool. And then we obviously get at the end of the movie, we get that credit scene,
The montage, yeah.
montage of the Fox universe and all of the different actors and behind the scenes footage. And wow, what a heartwarming way to just cap off the Fox. That everybody thought coming into this movie that this was going to be Deadpool kills the Fox universe type of like vibes, but it
Yeah.
really was Deadpool saves the Fox universe. Like, just so cool that they like played on that and just made it into, you know Deadpool, for as much flack as these movies get for being like, this is, I'm using quotes here, paper thin stories is what people say. Like, it's all about the jokes, it's all about Deadpool being funny, cool action, all that stuff. People think the storylines of Deadpool movies are just not all that great. But man, I went back and watched Deadpool and Deadpool 2 at the same week that we watched Deadpool and Wolverine, and those movies have heart, man. They get at you. They're emotional in a way that you don't expect, because you don't go into a movie like Deadpool and expect to get your heartstrings pulled at. But they do. They still do. And this movie did that more so than even the first or the second
Can I
film.
just
So
say, because I don't think I'll get another chance to bring it up, I am so mad that they canned Josh Brolin as Cable. One, because like,
Oh,
frick, I love Cable, but two,
that would have been
that was
cool to
the
see him back.
perfect casting of all time. And he's like, well, it didn't test well with that. And I'm like, oh no, keep him around. He was so good.
Yeah, that would have been cool to see him back as well. But
It
yeah, it
is.
was just a really cool, almost like a love letter to,
Oh, it really
the
was.
ending of the Fox universe. So, and which, like, for all the things that the Fox universe was and wasn't, it probably didn't deserve a love letter, to
Yeah.
be honest. Like,
like, well, obviously,
there
like,
are some high notes in
yeah.
the Fox universe. Like, don't get me wrong, there's good films. Like, Logan is probably one of my favorite superhero films of all time.
I
But
love my guilty pleasure is the Blade series.
oh yeah, oh
Those
yeah.
yeah.
movies are so bad, but they're so good.
But
But
then you got
Elektra,
right.
why is
Okay, so
Elektra in there?
here's the thing, though. You have those high highs, but
Yeah,
then you have the
yeah,
lows of the Fox universe,
yeah.
and they didn't even reference or mention or bring back any of the actors from the Fantastic movie.
Oh, thank
Thank
God. Yeah,
God, because that movie doesn't deserve to be celebrated
yeah.
at all. But that one, but they have just such a wide disparity between like the good Fox films and the bad Fox films. But it was so cool for them to like bring that all in and just like highlight the good stuff that came out of that Fox universe with that
For sure.
montage at the end. That was just really cool and classy, which, it's Deadpool. Again, you don't really expect heartwarming and classy from
Right.
Deadpool movie, but here we are. So okay, so I fast forwarded quite a bit there. Cassandra Nova, let's get back to her. She was a much
Phenomenal.
better villain than I expected her to be in this movie. I think watching the trailer going into this, I was like, man, they're really like, she just doesn't look intimidating. Like, she just looks like a villain that they're gonna defeat and be done with. And honestly, in the end, that's kind of what happened. But in the process, throughout this movie, she became increasingly more threatening and scary as a villain
The
than
fact
I.
that they did, the fact that they did like body horror and like
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
better than Sam Raimi was kind of wild.
intense,
Um,
intense.
and
Right.
she was legitimately threatening. I think the thing that really did it for me is how closely she mirrored McAvoy in like her
Yeah.
portrayal of Cassandra.
Yeah.
Like
True.
I would have believed if you would have had them side by side that those two were twins. The way that she pulled that off and like, oh my gosh, yeah, phenomenal acting, and the way they wrote her was fantastic. She was a great villain.
Yeah. Right. I think she did a phenomenal job. And you mentioned the body horror. Like that was the thing that I was going to mention. The fingers coming out of the face and the eyes and stuff. I was like, that's what turned me on her. I was like, this is
terrifying. Yeah.
This is terrifying. Yeah, I don't want to face her anymore. Like before I wasn't so scared. Now I'm a little scared.
Yeah. Like, what's she gonna do? Flame me?
Yeah, and not to mention like the initial scene when we meet her, literally just drops the skin off of Johnny's door.
Seriously,
just skins him alive immediately. Just turns to Deadpool and Wolverine, just melts into a big pile of goo. Oh my gosh, just incredible, man. So they go through this process, start to become buddies, shall we say, through the process of fighting each other. And then they meet the crew. We already got revealed in which, okay, let's talk about this a little bit. Why the heck did they spoil Daphne Keane as X-23 in the last trailer? That was a stupid move by Marvel.
Weird, yeah.
I just don't understand. Like, everybody was already hyped for this movie. I don't understand why you needed to do that.
I think they wanted to like make us think that it was going to be something to do with Logan. That's my only guess there. And I thought maybe that they were going to use this as like a kicking off point for, I don't know, a Wolverine project down the line that would be X-23 focused. With the way this movie went, I don't think that's the case, because she is dead. But I don't know. That's my only thought, is like, I thought they were using it as like a, hey, is this something people like? We don't know. We'll see. But
what do you think, Zane? Why did they show that before the film released?
I don't know. That was a weird choice. But at the same time, when I think about it, there's a part of me that feels like it could also, I don't know, because it was just so close to it. But like the whole aspect of like, you give people just a little bit, because I think having that reveal, it almost made it more of a shock of who the rest of the team was. It was almost as if, hey, we're going to give you just this little piece to let your guard down, because you think, oh, it's just going to be X-23. But then the right hook is coming on who else we have.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like it would have been more speculation of, guessing, but like, oh, it's X-23. We already have that. And I think that's maybe at least part of my thinking of kind of that thought of like, because it kind of did. You're like, oh, well, we know we're going to get X-23. And you felt that. But then I think it kind of dropped a bit of that guard, because then everyone else you got, you were just like, oh dang. Like it just completely just.
Yeah, right. It was a sweet. I think in the theater, if I had not seen the stills and the footage, like I tried not to watch anything coming out, including that last trailer. I didn't watch it, but of course, like on the internet, it's almost impossible to remain spoiler free if you don't mute those like terms and stuff like that. So I saw stills of her in that trailer. So I was like, ah, crap. Well, there we go. But so I knew she was in it, and it would have been a cooler reveal of her coming out of that, dark hallway or whatever when she actually like shows up. But like, yeah, I think you're right that the other massive cameos that complemented the team were almost just as big as her. So it kind of like was fine in the end. I don't think it like destroyed my enjoyment of her appearing in this film.
I think part of it too is just the fact that like of all the characters that people hypothesized or who's going to show up, I feel like hers was probably pretty high, that everyone's like, she's going to be in this. That was the biggest one. So that's why I also feel like it was the less, you'd rather wait for that in the movie, but that's also like the one that everyone expected to be there. Mm-hmm. So at the same time, you're just like, you would have preferred that in the movie, but at the same time, you're like, you knew she was going to be in this movie somewhere,
Yeah. Right. So, I mean, obviously we get her appearing after the rest of the team, because it was like a pretty big reveal that she was going to, be a part of the team. But first reveal we got was Jennifer Garner's Elektra, which that's another one that I was just like,
that was so wild.
okay then, like, great. Like, I'm not mad about it, but I did not expect it.
Yeah.
You know, like, and there, I think there were reports coming out a while back, like way back at the beginning of the year, that she could be in this
Of
film. So it
all
wasn't like,
people that you could pull from like the Daredevil universe,
right, yeah, like, just wow. And I think they did want to pull some from those like early independent Marvel films too. You know, just like not all X-Men related
Yeah.
people. So that was
but like Ben
you
Affleck,
know?
or
Right. Well, it's
Kingpin, you know
just
what I mean?
that
Like,
she says that line in there where like they're fighting and they're like, they said something about like Daredevil and she was just like, nah, I don't need him.
yeah.
It's like, oh,
All right,
okay.
cool.
But yes, that was an interesting one, and she was fun to watch. Don't get me
Yeah,
wrong.
she
I,
did
I it
fantastic.
was she did really well. I've never honestly seen the standalone Elektra movie.
It's
Sounds like
not
I
good.
should because it
It's
sounds like
it's
It's
bad.
really not good. Well, it's one of those things you would have needed to seen it, 15 years ago. But
It's
like,
not
I mean,
even
it's
guilty pleasure.
I've seen it
bad.
like
oh,
I
it's not. Yeah, it's not even guilty pleasure.
The first
Yeah,
Daredevil is kind of a guilty
Yeah.
pleasure one for me. Like
Yeah.
that one's got its own charm.
You're fine.
in a way.
If you've seen that one, you're fine. You don't need to see
Okay,
Elektra.
right.
Good. We'll just pretend that movie doesn't exist then.
Yeah, it's weird. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're not missing
Next-
anything
Yeah.
unless you're on some streak of like, hey, I'm just trying to hit all these
Hit
old
all of
movies. Then
I mean,
I get
maybe
it.
someday
The-
I will, but it's
the-
not
the-
high on my priority.
The classic costume is cool, but like it's just like yeah.
Yeah. So the next two big cameos were Wesley Snipes as Blade.
Hell
that
yeah.
one was the one.
That was so good.
I cannot believe they got this guy to
Yeah,
come back.
I was
to this movie.
shocked.
I saw him and I was like, no, that cannot be Wesley Snipes. Like,
Can
what?
Can I take 2 seconds? The meta commentary when he says, "I am the only Blade, and I'm the only Blade that they were," was so funny. If you
So
know
good.
anything about what's happened with the Blade
Well,
movies,
and the hilarious part is like, since they filmed that line and like scripted that line, there's probably been multiple director changes.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, there's probably he might be right. Like,
hilarious. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. So good. But yeah, I'm shocked that they got him to come back for it, but it was fantastic to see him.
And I like Wesley Snipes, famously not great to work with, very hard to get on any of these projects. But I think part of what may have sold this is one of Ryan Reynolds' biggest breaks is Blade 3. And I wonder if that relationship had anything to do with. Also, I love that they don't like mention that at all. That he's the same person in both.
Right.
Yeah, they didn't make a mention to that.
But my guess is like, because a lot of these people, it was their relationship to Ryan Reynolds that got him there. I don't know if you guys saw the article with Chris Evans, but like when he found out about the project, he texted Ryan Reynolds and was like, "Hey, I need to be in this."
That's amazing.
So
I love that.
my guess is that's how it went down. Is like Wesley Snipes was like, maybe got a text from Ryan Reynolds and he was like, "Hey, you owe me because I had to suffer through Blade 3."
Oh gosh. Yeah, that was a wild one. And then we got so little bit story before this one was, so I think Zane, you and I and Max and Robbie had all seen it, and Mark texts our group chat, "Man, it would be the best thing ever if we see Channing Tatum as and I wanted to say something so bad in that moment, but I knew he was literally on his way to the
You should have
movie.
texted him been like, "Yeah, that would have been cool."
That would have been cool. I wish that would have happened. We finally get Channing Tatum's Gambit, and they do
so good.
such a fantastic job at inserting the meta commentary of him never existing.
Yeah.
He just so many references to, yeah, man, I wish I would have. I wish I would have been able to do something like that, and I wish I existed. Basically, it's just like, oh my gosh.
So I used to live down south, and growing up, my dad had a buddy who was Cajun, and one of the things I love, I love Gambit. Gambit's like one of my favorite X-Men of all time, and I think the way that he's written in Claremont is fantastic. But one thing that they never do right in any of the TV series and anything else, and even in like modern comics, is they never play up how unintelligible the Cajun accent actually is. Because if you've ever met like a true Deep South Bayou man, like nothing they say makes sense. Yeah, and I love that he did that.
I've actually got a story about that. So,
Yeah, please.
so I watched this, and we're all like Northern guys. Like we don't.
Yeah.
I personally have zero clue what a Cajun accent sounds like.
Sure.
I mean, sure, I could go do research and watch YouTube videos on it, but I'm not familiar with that. So I listened to this, and I was like, number one, I can't understand anything he's saying. Number two, is this even like accurate? Is this what a Cajun accent sounds like?
Spot on, dude.
So, okay.
Yeah.
I text my buddy Caleb Ardwan, who is a patron of the Infinity Bros. Right. Thank you, Caleb. And he is a Deep South Louisiana boy, along with our good friend LJ Lowry as well. And I was like, so, okay, tell me, is this accurate? Like, is this what Cajun sounds like? And he was like, yeah, actually, it's spot on. Like, this is exactly what my family members sound like when they are speaking their like Cajun stuff. And I was like, okay, I can't even complain then about it, because it's hilarious that you can't understand a thing that he says. But the fact that Channing Tatum is able to nail a Cajun accent is impressive. Like,
isn't he?
That's impressive.
Tell me if I'm wrong, but isn't he actually Cajun?
All right, well, let's look it up.
I thought that's why
if
the whole casting
is Cajun, let me look it up, because if he is Cajun, he does a great job of hiding it in all his other acting roles.
Sure. So, have you ever like obviously we all met Corey Whittle when we were at college. Have you ever like heard somebody with a thick Jamaican accent? It's kind of that same thing where like there's English words in there, not in the order that you would expect. But the lovely thing about Cajun is like they randomly throw in like French things constantly. And so like the amount of times as a kid that I was called a couillon, which just means like idiot in French, is extremely high. He did phenomenal. I loved his character.
Yeah, he did. He's born in Alabama, moved to Mississippi when he was 6, and grew up in the bayous near the Pascagoula River.
Okay, yeah. So he is. Yeah, he's a swamp boy for sure.
He grew up around that kind of thing, so that's why. I didn't know Channing Tatum had it in him, but he sure does. Way to go, buddy! That was an amazing cameo. All the references that he was making, and the fact that he finally got to play this character that he's been fan casted for like, I don't know, 15 years.
Did you see the picture that was shared? There's a picture from Comic-Con 10 years ago. And it's him and Ryan Reynolds, and he's wearing the shirt. He's wearing the Gambit shirt. And then they took another one this year as like which I thought was phenomenal. Like awesome. He's been waiting. Dude put in his time.
Yeah, he put in the work. I'm looking at this Wikipedia page, and he said he signed on to play Gambit in 2014. 10 years. And I'm sure he was fan casted before that too.
So wait, what did he sign on for? Like, what was the project?
In a solo Gambit film.
Oh, I didn't even know
that was the project.
Sure.
And it was ultimately canceled in 2019, 10 years after originally
that makes that joke so much funnier than...
Oh, yeah.
So great. So great. Just absolutely incredible meta commentary there. So out of this team, so we've got Gambit, Channing Tatum. Right. We've got Daphne Keane as X-23. You've got Wesley Snipes as Blade, and then Jennifer Garner's Elektra. Which one of those guys was your favorite cameo or appearance in this film?
Oh, this is hard. Zane, you go first, because I gotta actually think.
Yeah, it's Blade for me. I mean, Blade is one of my favorite characters. Like, I love Blade. Like, it's funny how Mark said that. He mentioned that about the Gambit thing, but like when I sat down for this movie, when I was asking myself of like, who do I want to see in this movie, that I would be like, all right, this is sweet. And I told myself, I want to see either Blade or Ghost Rider. I was like, of my two characters, I want one
my
of those
God.
two.
Nick
Ghost
Cage's
Rider.
Ghost Rider has to show up
Yeah.
in Secret Wars now that
But-
he's not in this.
Well, right, but that's when I was like, this is also the perfect movie that you could have given us Nick Cage's Ghost Rider, and it still would have worked.
Incredible.
So that's what I told myself. If I get Nick Cage Ghost Rider or Blade, I'd be happy. And I got Blade, so I'm like, I was perfectly content. So for me, the Blade cameo is my favorite.
Yeah. What about you, Jarrett?
I want to say Blade, just because those movies are so like. I remember how like hyped I was, even though like as an adult I realized the dumbest scene ever. But like the scene, I think it's in Blade 2 where he walks into the club and it's like raining blood and he's like chopping vampires' heads off and stuff.
Dude, no, that's the intro to one. That is one of my all-time favorite intros.
Yeah.
Like I will go and just
so-
watch that intro. I
so
love it so much.
But I think for me it was actually seeing Gambit because he's such a cool character, and the whole time he was on screen, I just had like a craving for like King Cake and Jambalaya because he did such a good job. Yeah, it's gotta be Gambit.
One thing about Gambit too was like it's so funny how like I mean we all watched X-Men 97, the like, you know,
Dude, Gambit was so good in that too.
Yeah, it's so good. And animation, Gambit is one of the coolest characters on the X-Men. Like it's so great. Seeing him in live action is just kind of strange. Like if I'm being completely honest, the action was great. Like don't get me wrong. Like it was really cool in that final fight scene when he's like charging up the cards and he got to do his like cool like move where he like used his whole deck of cards and was like shooting them and stuff. But like the headpiece that he was the thing that got me. I was like, this looks so dumb in live action. It just does not translate. But I actually love it more that they put it on, even though it just doesn't look good. It was just chef's kiss. It was incredible. But out of that crew, though, honestly, I think Daphne Keane was my favorite appearance because I had just watched Logan like 2 or 3 days before.
Oh, sure.
And man, Logan is such a powerful movie.
It is so
and Daphne Keane is part of that, like why that movie works so well, because she just as a child actor, that's one of the best child acting performances like I've seen in a hot minute.
Her cameo just makes me sad.
It does make you sad.
X-23 is like one of my favorite comic book characters because of like the runs that come after that with Honey Badge and all this other stuff. And I think the fact that like we'll never see her again or like that character without like a huge reboot is so dumb to me.
Yeah, that is a little bit sad. And obviously, I mean, she has the history of, you know, being a part of the universe where Logan actually dies.
Right.
So she's got all that trauma, like, you know, with her. And she's the one that, like, basically rallies the worst Wolverine is like, you're, you know, he basically turns to her and is like, I'm not the guy. And she's like, yeah, you never were. So...
buck up, kiddo.
Buck up, kiddo. Exactly. But yeah, that gets him going, and it's so cool that like they all jump out of the car in their cool action scenes, and then all of a sudden Wolverine just like rolls out of the back
slowly,
of the Honda Odyssey, the beat up, nasty, like bloody Honda Odyssey that they all roll up in. Just oh my gosh, that final fight scene was so fun to watch.
I love that for dramatic effect too. They actually let the whole hatch open and go. Because like as somebody who owns a minivan, those things take forever. And he's
Like, you're sitting there with like a whole handful of like stuff, just waiting for that thing to finally open up. Yeah, it's ridiculous. But he rolls out. They do the slow motion like walk up. It was is everything that I wanted in a action film. Just so great. And we get some cool action, you know, with Cassandra Nova, like she's doing her thing. And you know, actually in the beginning of that fight scene, she just checks out. She's like, I'm gonna let my crew
she's like, you guys got this.
Yeah, you guys got this. I'm just gonna let you die, literally. But apparently she's not concerned about that because she literally, like, when Eliath comes around, she just goes and checks out to like her bedroom and just lets her whole crew.
Yeah, which by the way, when she's like, Eliath is hungry, those people show up again. So, like, what did Eliath eat?
Well, he must have eaten the bones and flesh of the Human Torch that were laying on the ground there or something. I don't know. But yeah, great final fight scene. We finally get Deadpool and Wolverine back to their universe where they fall in on a Honda Odyssey. It was just like poetry. Just
coming
and
full circle.
Full circle. Pete's there. Peter's there, just waiting for him. Oh, it was great. It was great. And then we get probably one of the best scenes in the movie. Cassandra Nova comes after him. Another epic fight scene, which was kind of foretold in all of the trailers.
Right.
We get the big walkout with Deadpool and Wolverine against an army of Deadpool variants.
We get the Layfield's just feet. And
yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh, it was. Oh, okay. And to back up a little bit, so like we got Dogpool, we got the perfect Deadpool, which that was hilarious.
So
we got
good.
Ryan Reynolds like just being perfect, and then Deadpool using what did they call him again? What was his name? I forget.
Nice Pool.
Nice Pool. Deadpool using Nice Pool as a meat shield, and then finding out afterwards that he doesn't
his whole like. It makes no sense why he pulls him back out in front of him, and he's like, "You can make it." And the whole time he like doesn't move. It's so good.
And then Hugh Jackman just standing up with Dogpool, and all the Deadpools just
stop. Yeah, don't shoot,
boy.
He just walks across in silence as they're all staring at him. Oh.
Loki, I think there's no reason either for them to go from the one side of the street to the
zero
other.
reason at all. It was just for dramatic effect. That's what the best part about it was.
I think my favorite part of having the Nice Pool is when he's just like trying to prove that he can do fourth wall breaks too, and he just looks to the camera. He's like, "The proposal." And you're just like, it was just so random. You're just like, what?
Yeah.
There's a line too. I can't remember at what point in the movie. But there's a line that Nice Pool drops where he's like, and I wonder what Blake would think of this. And I'm like, that's so good, dude. That's so good.
Just, dropping real world references.
So Zayne, we get the scene with all the Deadpools. How many of those do you recognize? Because there was a point, I like Deadpool casually. I've read a lot of comics. I've read all the Dugan ones. And I think I recognize like 5 or 6 of them. I want to know, like, how many of those did you check off your list?
I mean, there was quite a few.
We got Zenpool, which was my favorite.
Yeah.
Kid
Obviously, Zenpool, Kidpool, Headpool, Lady Pool, Cowboy Pool.
Yeah.
Which was voiced by Matthew McConaughey, which was fantastic.
Nathan Fillion voiced Headpool.
Oh my god!
Nathan Fillion was Headpool.
That's so good. I had no idea.
Okay, this was just a Ryan Reynolds thing, but Welsh Pool was played by Nick Mullins, who is a professional soccer player on the Wrexham team that Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney own. Hilarious cameo. Love that.
That's
phenomenal. I think the only one that I was looking for that I didn't see, which would have been hilarious, which I get why it wasn't there because it was Panda Pool. I was really hoping we would have gotten Panda Pool, but Panda Pool wasn't there.
That'd be awesome.
But yeah, just seeing all of it, it's just like that's one of those things. Take multiple rewatches just to see which ones you can pick up, like because there were just so many of them, which can really add to the depth to it.
Cinematography of them like slowly panning across the street while they're like slicing up all the Deadpools. And it felt very comic booky, which I appreciate.
I feel like through the bus and everything, that was that was like moving a panel. It was great.
Yeah, it's so cool. And then they bust out of the bus at the end, and then all the Deadpools just get up.
Yeah,
they're fine. Like, that's amazing. Just a great Deadpool fight. It was perfect.
I think the underrated part of that fight too is how they all run to the left side of the screen. And then it shoots back, and it's literally just Wolverine just pushing and punching the entire. You're just like, that's comic, but like that is such a comic thing. And it's just, and then Deadpool is just pushing him. Like it was like that was so well done.
Yeah,
just that entire scene. Yeah, like I said, it's so comic booky, and it just fits so well. and there's so much stuff going on, not only in the foreground of the fight, but of the background, and just all the different ways of even just like that people are just dying. Well, not really dying because it's Deadpool, but it's just like the amount of creative kills and the different stuff, how it all interacts. You're just like, for that whole shot just to keep running, like just like that was very cool.
Yeah, that was
We
incredible.
get Peter Pool.
Yeah.
Peter Pool. Oh yeah. Great ending where Peter just shows up and they're all like, Peter, let's go. They all just mob Peter, and then Deadpool and Wolverine just walk away.
What's his buddy in the comics?
That was the part that he went Hydra Bob.
Yeah,
that's what I'm like.
okay.
That's the only part of these that I'm missing. I was like, it'd be. I mean, you kind of get that in like the first movie, but like Hydra Bob is Peter in the comics. Like that's that character. And
they
it's
all
just
have
like
their Bob.
like right. They all have their Bob, but it still works in the movie with the Peter Pool. But there is a part you're just like, oh, it would have been so cool to get a Hydra Bob reference, or just see someone pop out dressed as actually Hydra Bob in the Hydra suit and stuff. Like it's like that would have been a cool thing to see.
I love it.
Oh man. So Cassandra Nova follows them into their universe, goes down to so this is another thing that I didn't really connect with me. So like the TVA base that Paradox is working out of is in the subway in their universe. That didn't make sense.
So his base is in the TVA. It's in like a hidden part of the TVA. But he has to have a base in the subway to set up his, what did they call it? The timeline killer,
time ripper.
Oh, right. That's a time ripper because they're deleting that universe. Okay. Yes. All right. I'm connecting the dots now.
Also, why is he there when they're going to destroy? Like, I know that's a little nitpicky, but like, wouldn't he also die when the universe?
He would zip in one of his cool little TVA doors before destroyed it, I guess. But Cassandra finds that time ripper. Thank you. And decides that she can use it. Goes in there. And that was, again, another cool, like, this was another cool dichotomy of the Deadpool and Wolverine, like, dynamic here. So they go down there and, like, they're both ready to die to save the world, right? Like, they're both ready to do it. Wolverine's like, I got nothing to live for. So, like,
gives the great speech,
Great speech. I'm obviously the guy. And then Deadpool just like classic Deadpool. Like it was a very heartwarming like speech and everything. And then Deadpool just goes in there, locks the door,
and then proceeds for 5 minutes
to mock him as he's locked out. And then, so then he, Deadpool destroys one of them. Can't reach the other one. Logan gets in there. We already talked about the shirt bursting into atoms. just incredible. Just they did such a great job at putting the comedic bit onto Hugh Jackman.
Right.
Because obviously Ryan Reynolds he's a comedic genius. Like he's funny. Yeah. Like everybody knows he's going to be funny. When Hugh Jackman is the center of the funny, like
it makes it so much better.
Makes everything so much better. It's great. So that part was incredible. They saved the day. I think another part of this that gets the heartstrings a little bit is that Deadpool, through the whole first quarter or third of the movie, is like basically searching for meaning. Like, do I matter? Is kind of his like question, right? And then he gets this picture of his people, and he's like, I don't really need to matter. Like these people matter. This is what this is my world. This is what I'm fighting for. And at the end of the movie, like that plays a big part in it. Like, and then he brings Logan into his world and, becomes a part of their like little family. But I love that it came back to that at the end,
right?
That they pulled around and were like, you know what? Like, yeah, you can do things that matter. And honestly, it doesn't matter because you have the people that matter around you. So that was a really cool. I love that the Deadpool movies can still be full of heart, even though they're just nasty comedies.
Right. Well, I thought, and maybe that was me just looking into it too much, but I thought that was a unique way of yeah, you have that heartfelt moment. But then the fact too that when Paradox was explaining like how to shut that down, how he explained that the two engines, one worked on, one was like antimatter and one was matter. And the whole part of it was being, hey, one of these characters matters and one doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And it basically how that still kind of ties in that, like, hey, the matter and antimatter, you bridge it, but like it's almost kind of like a analogy, I guess you could say, of just like, well, you have the physical representation, like, hey, here's antimatter and matter, and that's how this whole time machine works. But then you have two characters that,
It was
matters
very,
and doesn't matter. Like,
yeah. It was very comic. Like the ending of this is super comic booky, where like
yeah,
you have this Omega level mutant who just like dies because she's touching a machine that blew up, but also
right.
like all we got to do is connect these two with the power of friendship and we'll survive. It doesn't make sense at all, but I kind of love that.
Right. That's where I kind of.
Oh, go ahead.
That's where I kind of like get where people are coming from, where the story didn't do it for him. It's like it doesn't make that much sense.
It's not supposed to, because he says
Right.
at the beginning of the movie when he shows the Time Ripper, the line that Deadpool drops is so funny because he's like, "What the MacGuffin is that?" Like,
right,
it's so,
literally, yeah.
he knows that none of this is making sense, and like, there's no reason that Cassandra shouldn't be dead. They shouldn't have survived that thing. But like, that's so comic booky.
It's a
like,
comic book, right? It makes no sense, but it does.
There's a perfect comic book counterpart to a comic book movie to the comic book counterpart. The Deadpool franchise is like a very good one. And Jarret, you and I talked a little bit pre-Patreon about like how Deadpool is more of a complex character in the comics than he really is in the movies, because it's hard to portray that level of complexity in a 1.5 2-hour movie. As we keep going with these movies, we get more and more
this
layers.
has done the best job of that by far.
Right. I fully agree with that, and I think it's cool that we're getting those layers and complexity added to him as he continues, and by all intents and purposes is going to continue in the MCU. So, which will be very interesting to see how that works.
He's gonna do this till he's 90. The thing that I loved about that too, one of the most famous interviews that people have from the production of Logan is when Hugh Jackman was talking about how excruciating those shirtless scenes are. He talks about there's an interview out there, and I'll have to find it somewhere, where he talks about like how he had to dehydrate himself for 3 days in order to like do the Wolverine scenes. And I'm just like, that's all that's playing on loop in my mind as he's like shirtless for that. And I'm like, this poor dude is just like can't get past it. Like, they are gonna make him go shirtless till he's 90, and he's still gonna look 90.
He's still gonna do it. All right, guys, we've talked a lot about Deadpool and Wolverine, so I think it is time. I think it's time to rate what you thought of this movie. Jarret, I'm gonna have you go first. What is your rating of Deadpool and Wolverine?
Oh gosh, I give it 8 chimichangas out of 6.
8 chimichangas?
8 full chimichangas out of 6. Yeah.
Wow. That is indeed a rating.
This is the most Deadpool anything has ever done.
It surely is. I'm going to go with a more traditional approach, and I will rate this a 5.5 out of 6. I think it's the best Deadpool movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no lie. I think I rewatched all the Deadpool movies before this too. Deadpool, I'll give it a 5. Deadpool 2, 4.5.
Whoa! Deadpool 2.
I didn't enjoy
Deadpool
as much. Yeah.
Whoa!
Didn't enjoy it as much as the first one. Deadpool 3, 5.5 out of 6. This probably cracks my top 5 Marvel films. Like, honestly, it's very good. Very good, very entertaining. Absolutely loved it. Zane, what was your rating?
10,001 pancakes out of 6.
All right. That's what I expected out of you. Shenanigans, all full of shenanigans. Well, it's fitting on a Deadpool episode, so that works.
If you like this movie, and I want to pitch this to Zane because I know what my answer would be, but like we have a Deadpool guy on the podcast. Zane, if you're watching this and you're like, man, these films are phenomenal, Ryan Reynolds is great, I wonder what the comics are like. What's like a Deadpool series, a volume, a event? What would you point them towards?
Well, it depends on what type of Deadpool you're looking for.
Sure.
Like if you want, I mean, obviously what we kind of know of Deadpool now, of what built the character, is any of like from that Joe Kelly's run is basically what built Deadpool. I really liked the one that really got me into Deadpool was Daniel Way's run in the early 2000s.
Yes.
Fantastic. That's a ton of the comedies when it starts getting in there. Like I said, that's where I started. The Cable and Deadpool series is fantastic.
That's really good.
It's way more, gets more serious. Like I said, the Daniel Way run is more comedy. You get that side of Deadpool. Cable and Deadpool is more serious. And then as you get into the Posen and you get into the newer stuff is when you get way more of kind of your current with Deadpool.
Right.
But I really like the Daniel Way run.
I'll put my hat in the ring. I think those are all phenomenal suggestions. I think the Dugan run was also really good.
Yeah,
it's sort of that tongue in cheek. Guys, go read comics. Like these movies are great, but the comics are so much better.
Also, like if you're also just looking for like a one shot on it, the Deadpool versus Hawkeye comic
is so good.
So good.
It's criminally good.
So good.
Love that. Thank you guys for the recommendation. I feel like we need to do that more often with our with our comic book movie reviews and TV show reviews, because that's, like when it comes down to it, we are comic book guys as well, and we don't give enough comic book shout outs on our podcast. So thanks for those recommendations, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
One last question I have for both of you. Why is Thor crying?
That's a great question. That's not, to be clear, that's not Chris Hemsworth Thor. That's
This is
Brad. Do you think that's Brad Pitt?
No,
Thor?
it's is it Brad Pitt? No, it's
no, it's his brother. It's Chris Hemsworth's brother's Thor from the play.
It's Liam.
Because in the
Brad Pitt played him in the play.
It's Liam
it's
Hemsworth
Chris Hemsworth's
and,
brother.
Gosh, who plays Loki? It's
Matt Damon.
Yeah, it is Matt Damon. I was gonna say Wahlberg, but that wasn't right.
Matt Damon.
I think it is like a cosmic play. I think it's just a cosmic play, and it has nothing to do with actual Thor.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. Because it's definitely just one of those things that everyone's like reference on, but it's just like there's no way it means anything. But yeah, the fact that it's literally the play Thor, like it's a play. Like
that was amazing though. It was such a great little
brilliant
moment in the movie. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining me, Jarret, Zayne. It's been a pleasure.
Dude, the pleasure's always
always.
Listeners, if you're itching for more Marvel news, make sure you go back and listen to episode 203, where we talk about Marvel's Hall H presentation at San Diego Comic-Con. Lots of theories if you're looking for a Reality Stone type episode. Make sure you go back and listen to that one. Thank you so much for listening to us, for supporting us, wherever you're listening, however you're listening. Thank you so much for making us a part of your podcast experience. We love you 2000. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Infinity Bros podcast. You can find the Infinity Bros on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitch, and YouTube at The Infinity Bros. You can also check out our website at theinfinitybros.com for links, reviews, and sweet merch. Feel free to send us listener feedback via social media or email at infinitybrospodcast@gmail.com.